Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tony Monaco, president of Tufts University. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the Alan D. Solomont Lecture on Citizenship and Public Service, featuring the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi. We're grateful that so many members of the Tufts community are joining us today, and we're honored to welcome Speaker Pelosi back to Tufts University, albeit virtually, for this event as part of the Tisch College's Distinguished Speaker Series. We have been fortunate to host Speaker Pelosi twice before at Tufts, first in 2011 for the inaugural Solomont Lecture, and again in 2019 when she joined Massachusetts Congresswomen Ayanna Pressley, Catherine Clark, and Lori Trahan for a forum on early childhood education. The Solomont Lecture and the Distinguished Speaker Series are part of Tisch College's efforts to connect the Tufts community with inspirational civic leaders to discuss today's most pressing challenges and to exemplify the diverse pathways to civic action. Those efforts have been especially important during the pandemic. And so without further ado, let me briefly say a few words about tonight's distinguished guests. Nancy Pelosi has been one of the most influential figures in American politics for over 3 decades. She is the 52nd Speaker of the House of Representatives, having made history in 2007 when she was elected the first woman to serve as Speaker of the House. Now in her 4th term as Speaker, she made history again when she regained her position after the Democrats won back the House in 2018, the first person to do so in over 60 years. As Speaker, Nancy Pelosi is focused on making healthcare affordable and accessible for all Americans, promoting economic growth, and addressing corruption. Speaker Pelosi has represented California's 12th congressional district for 34 years and led House Democrats for 18 years and has previously served as House Democratic Whip. She led Congress in passing historical health insurance reform, key investments in college aid, clean energy and innovation, and initiatives to help small businesses and veterans. Speaker Pelosi comes from a strong family tradition of public service in Baltimore. She is a mother of 5 and grandmother of 9. Leading the conversation with Speaker Pelosi is Alan Solomont, the Pierre and Pamela Omidyar Dean of the Jonathan M. Tisch College of Civic Life. Alan is a lifelong jumbo who was a Tufts undergraduate, a Tufts parent, a visiting instructor, and founding board chair of Tisch College before becoming dean in 2014. A longtime social and political activist, Alan previously served as national finance chair of the Democratic Party and played key roles in several presidential campaigns. From 2010 to 2013, Alan served as the United States ambassador to Spain and Andorra. As dean of Tisch College, he leads the college's mission to prepare a new generation of young people to solve problems in their communities, to participate in our democracy, and to help create a brighter world. Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Speaker Pelosi, for joining us for what I'm sure will be a fantastic conversation. So let's get started.
Thank you very much, Tony, for those very kind words. And thank you for your incredible leadership of our university, especially during these times when we are coping with a pandemic. Welcome to our audience. Thank you all for being here. If you're interested in attending more of our speaker series, go to tischcollege.tufts.edu/events. One program note, we hope to see you on March 8th when we will host Anthony Fauci. Madam Speaker, I am delighted also to welcome you back to Tufts, albeit virtually, but it's always a pleasure to have you here. We at Tisch College are so grateful that you can join us this evening and for everything that you do on behalf of our country and our democracy. and we are relieved and thankful that you are safe and well. The entire Tufts community is so excited to have you. We have over 3,000 people registered for this event, so let's get right to it.
Wonderful.
I'd like to start, Madam Speaker, this conversation with your personal story. You grew up in a political family in Baltimore, but after moving with your husband Paul to San Francisco in 1969, perhaps you were chasing the Grateful Dead. You spent the next 20 years or so raising 5 children. When you did run for Congress in 1987, if you don't mind my saying, you were nearly 50 years old.
And I was just turned 47.
Gotcha. Thank you. I stand corrected. You've been involved in Democratic Party politics in California as a volunteer and an activist. So tell us how you balanced being a mom and a political activist, and how you transitioned from motherhood to national political leadership.
Well, first, may I say thank you, Alan, for the invitation to be with you this evening. It's an honor to be at the Alan Solomont Lecture on Citizenship and Public Service, which I attended years ago, and now again now. And in between, as President Monaco said, to have, and Mr. President, thank you for acknowledging my visit with my colleagues, of whom I'm very proud, Congresswoman Catherine Clark, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, and Congresswoman Lloyd Trahan. We're so proud of them that Massachusetts has such an array of great and talented women, and that we were here to talk about children and their future, and that we had the privilege of visiting the child care center at that time. Children, children, children. When people ask me what are the 3 most important issues facing the Congress, I always say the same thing: our children, our children, our children. That's what got me out of the House and into the Congress. But I'll get to there in a moment. First, let me say how happy I am to be back at Tufts. I was saying earlier to some of you that the first time I came, we had the Alan Solomont Lecture, and after that we had lunch with then President Balcow, and now he's down the road, and they gave me an elephant. I didn't know that this was the Moscow. I just thought, giving me an elephant. Oh my gosh. But now I know what a compliment that was to receive the elephant. Not a symbol of any other political party, but nonetheless.
Not a political statement.
Anyway, and I also want to acknowledge Jonathan Tisch. John Tisch, his family have been so important, an all-American family. When I say contributing, I mean intellectually contributing in so many ways and in every way, whether it's sports, the arts, education, the economy, so many ways, a family of great patriots, and that he has the Tisch College of civic life is perfect, because that's a description of his family's contributions, some in public service, some in the private sector, some in nonprofit, in every way contributing. And I'm so honored to be with you, Jonathan. Thank you. And Lizzie, for what you've done for Tufts. Now, let me say this. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I will say this, because being in Congress is such an honor, it really is. And to be there when that assault was made on the Congress was such a horrible thing. And somebody, we've had these interviews, what was it like, this or that? And I'll just use that to go into my story a little bit. When I was a little girl, my father was a member of Congress. I was like in kindergarten or first grade when we went over for his swearing in, one of his swearing-ins for Congress. And I was reading my books in the back of the car, and I had 5 older brothers who were all piled into the car. And they said, Nancy, Nancy, look, look, there's the Capitol. There's the Capitol. And I was like, I don't see any Capitol. A couple minutes go by. Nancy, Nancy, look, now you can see it even better. There's the Capitol. No, third time, there's a Capitol. I said, well, is it a capital A? Is it a capital B? Or is it a capital C? No, it's the Capitol of the United States. And there it was, this beautiful glowing dome, this temple of democracy, which just to see the excitement that my brothers had about the Capitol made it even more exciting to me as the youngest in the family. So it was a personal thing for me to see the assault on the Capitol for many reasons. And I say to my colleagues, there is, no matter how many honors you may bestow upon me, being the whip, the leader, the Speaker of the House, whatever it is, nothing is more of an honor than to walk onto that floor of the Capitol each day that we are in session to speak for the people of San Francisco, my home. And in any event, for them, for our democracy, for our founders, the vision of our founders, for our men and women in uniform, for the sacrifices they have made to make our democracy continue and flourish, and for the children, the aspirations of the children. It's a great honor to serve there. And it was a great sadness to see the assault on it, but so happy that we got right back in to continue our work.
When you decided to run for Congress, your fifth and youngest child, Alexandra, was, I think, 14, or she was in high school. And just share with people what she said to you when you asked her if she minded that you run for Congress and you might have to live in Washington a few days each week.
Well, Alan is cutting off years from my kids and adding them on to me. She was about 16. She was 16, but young going into senior year. So I went to her, I said, Alexandra, now our four were already in college. These children are 5 and 6 years almost to the day. 4 of them now off in college. She's going to be a senior. And I said, Alexandra, mommy has been asked to run for Congress, but if it were 1 more year and you were in college, then I would consider that. But I want to ask you if you think it's okay if I run. I don't even know if I'll win, but I just want you to know I would be gone for like 3 nights a week, Monday through Thursday, come home Thursday evening, and then home during holidays and things like that. So anyway, any answer is okay. I love my life being with you and Dad and all that, but I have to give them an answer as to whether I will run, not even knowing if I will win. To which she said, Mother, now I'm saying mommy has a chance to run, but Mother, so I knew I was in a little bit of trouble. Mother, get a life. A teenage girl wouldn't want her mother gone 3 nights a week. I had never heard the expression get a life. This is a long time ago.
Well,
so I did. I mean, I had a life, but I expanded it somewhat.
Well, you have a
with her permission.
You have a wonderful family, and we've been privileged to get to know many of them.
We love you. The Pelosi's love the Solomonts, that's for sure.
When you arrived in Washington, though, you were one of only 24 women in the 135-member House of Representatives. There were, I believe, if I get my numbers right, 13 Democrats and 11 Republicans.
Very close like that.
No prominent committees were chaired by women. There wasn't even a women's bathroom near the House floor. How did you go about changing things, and what gave you the strength to endure that male-dominated world until you could turn it on its head? And did it help to have grown up as the youngest and only girl in a household of 7 children?
Well, let me just say, I was not, I guess when you have a lot of brothers, you're not impressed with, so, sometimes, I mean, when I say not impressed, it isn't a big deal to be around a lot of them. But this was ridiculous. Imagine 435 people in the Congress, and over 400 of them are men. What? Right away, we had to make a decision to change all of that. And it's hard. It's hard. But now we have over 100 to be the Speaker of the House and the 100th anniversary of women having the right to vote. And have over 100 women in the Congress is very important. We've gone from like 12 Democrats to over 90, and the Republicans have gone from 11 to like 30. So they have more to go, and so do we. But we just made a decision that in every election, we would add more women. Now, I say to the women and the young women there, this is not to say that women are better than men or anything, you know, it's to just say the beauty is in the mix. You have to have the diversity of thinking if you're going to get the strength of ideas that you need to have. And I must say, in the beginning, when we were growing in our numbers, if we would gather in the well of the house, the men would get very suspicious. What are they up to now? Or they all have on the same color today. What are they up to? Is it purple? Is it white? Is it, you know, is it suffragist or what? But then they got used to it. And but when I ran for speaker, I mean for leader the first time, now as speaker, I was running for leader. They said, "Who said she could run?" Poor babies. Who said she could run? What a thing. And nobody had to tell us to run. But imagine there was over 200 years of a pecking order of this man and then that man and that man, all wonderful people. But some of us thought it might be time to have some diversity. When they said, "Who said she can run?" we said, nobody has to tell us to run.
Well, you've done a marvelous job. It's rather extraordinary to think that it was that recent that you were faced with that situation. I mean, 1987 is not that long ago, but.
Well, this, when I was running, was like 2001, so it really was when I was running for leadership, so it wasn't that long ago.
Madam Speaker, you've described yourself as a master legislator. What does that mean? And is there a single legislative accomplishment of which you are most proud?
Well, I would have to say that nothing compares to the Affordable Care Act, when you can add 20 million people to having access to affordable care, the lives it saves, and the quality of life that it improves. And that in addition to that, there are many more people who, 150 million more families who have better benefits, who have the pre-existing condition, not an obstacle to their, that probably made such a big difference in people's lives. Before, if you had a pre-existing medical condition, it was almost impossible to get health care that you could afford. Impossible, unless you were of the wealthiest, or maybe if you were on Medicaid, you still wouldn't have the quality of it. But in any case, that was important. And to work with President Obama was just great, because we had that shared vision, and he just masterful in terms of working with his leadership, his vision of what he wanted to see accomplished. And again, I knew how to do legislation, so that was good. And may I just say, in case any of your audience does not know, that you were so instrumental in electing President Obama to be President of the United States, and the courage it took for you to depart from the status quo and the traditional path that most people were on, to just decide that you were going to go down that path with this new person and charge, what, $23? Was that what it was? $23 an event to keep growing the universe of people who would be supporting him. And of course, the respect he has for you. I've seen him at your home. I've seen him, I was there when you were sworn in as the ambassador to Spain, and the respect that he has for you and for Susan, just remarkable.
Well, you're way too generous, Madam Speaker, and you're embarrassing me. I will say that I was fortunate to go to Spain with a marvelous co-ambassador. I used to introduce myself as the husband of the wife of the ambassador to Spain, Susan Solomont. I know somebody that you're very fond of. You are not only a master legislator, you are a master leader. But how do you maintain unity and discipline among members of your caucus who are elected from such different districts from all over the country and who hold different views on many issues?
Well, let me just say, I call myself a master legislator. I don't call myself a master leader, but I do know, I see, when I was there, I didn't aspire. First of all, I never aspired to run for Congress. So And then when I was in Congress, I never aspired to run for leadership. So I was deeply engrossed in my committee's appropriations and intelligence, that were two, and ethics, but the two substantive ones were intelligence and appropriations. So I knew the substance of it. In appropriations, you're in every subject, you know, that's, and intelligence, I was really, I don't know how far back you'd have to go to find a speaker who had any national security credentials, says she immodestly. But I did. I've been now like 25 years in intelligence. But so I knew, you know, it helps when you're legislating. You have a vision, you have knowledge, so you have some judgment at how to plan to achieve your goal. And I say that because I know there's some very young people in the audience, and everything that you do, if you're interested in public service or the civic life, as the Tisch College is aptly named, know your vision, your why. What is your vision? Know something about a particular subject, and if it's climate, is it juvenile justice, is it education? What is the subject that draws you to this? Know about it. You don't know everything about it, but know your why and your what. And then how you expect to to explain to people why you care so much about this and what your North Star is on it. And when you show that, what you care about, what you know about it, but the plan you can develop to achieve a goal, you will attract so much support. And that is called leadership, that connection that you will have, that connection. So in my path, it was really not just to be, but to be a legislator, until people came to me again and said, you should run for leadership. Not me. And you know, one thing led to another. So, but the way I went, to go back to your original question, I went from housewife to House Speaker. Was because of the children. Back to that point, it's about the children, the children, the children. My husband Paul and I have 5 children, 9 grandchildren, as President Monaco so lovingly said, and it bothered me. I couldn't stand it that 1 in 5 children in America goes to sleep hungry at night, lives in poverty. We had to change the public policy to change the situation for those children. So that has always been my motivation. Well, know about it, do something about it, connect with people.
I want to just mention that probably most of the students who are listening this evening were well under 10 years old when you first took the gavel on January 3rd, 2007. And many of us remember watching that scene. And when you invited all of the children in the chamber to join you at the rostrum, and you said at that moment that it was all about the children. And that was just a wonderful moment, as I'm sure you recall, and many other Americans recall. But speaking—
And I thank you. That was very special because I wanted to call the House to order for the children. And when children come to the Capitol, and now hopefully pretty soon they'll be able to do so again, I always say to them, as you visit Washington, you see statues and monuments to our founders, and we show our respect for that, and that's important. But what we do here is not about the past, it's about the future. It's about you. It's about the planet that you will live in that we want to preserve. It's about the education you will receive. It's about the health care you would have access to. Well, as I say, for the children, their health, their education, the economic security of their families, a community, a safe community in which they can thrive, a world at peace in which they can reach their satisfaction. Now, one thing I didn't answer in your question, you asked about bringing people together. We have a very diverse group in our caucus. I'm proud to say 70% of our caucus is women, minorities, LGBTQ, women, people of color, LGBTQ. 70% of our caucuses has never happened in the history of the world that we would have such a diverse caucus. And today we passed the Equality Act. That's why I have on my rainbow. We passed the Equality Act to end discrimination against the LGBTQ community. It's a happy day for us. But what unifies us is because we do have our diversity, geographic, generational, gender identity, ethnicity, philosophical differences and all. But what brings us together is not any one person. What brings us together are our values. And the Democratic Party in the Congress is committed to being there for America's working families. That's our commitment for the children.
Speaking of young people, as you know, at Tisch College, my colleagues are among the nation's leading authorities on the civic and political engagement of young people. We study youth voting, and young people were absolutely decisive in the 2018 elections and again in the 2020 election. And they voted overwhelmingly for Democrats. So what do Democrats have to do to maintain their popularity with young people? And what do we all have to do to ensure that young people continue to engage in our democracy?
Well, you know better than anyone because you have spent so much time having this as a priority. The first thing we have to do, as far as young people are concerned, is to listen. To listen. They are of a whole new world. They communicate in different ways than many of us did. Growing up, for sure, but even now. And when we listen to them, what we hear, and again, you always have to be current, is that they care about this planet, that climate change is a very big issue for them, that issues that relate to respecting the dignity and worth of a person, the LGBTQ issue is not the issue that it might have been for their grandparents, but that they have respect for people. When I listen to them, they talk about education and what those opportunities are and how affordable are they and how can we all help make sure that they are not burdened with enormous debt as we go forward. Sometimes I have them come in, well, now we can hardly have anybody come in, but come in because, as I say, when we're doing the budget, some people on the other side of the aisle say, well, for the children, we cannot invest anymore in education because it's going to add to the national debt. Forgive me for saying what I'm going to say now.
Forgive me.
Close your ears, President Monaco. But to say we should not invest in education because it's going to add to the national debt is, with stiff competition, one of the dumbest proposals that some people have put forth, because it is the most important investment that a family, a community, a country can make. And important to note, economists will tell you, nothing brings more money to the Treasury than the education. Nothing brings more than the education of the American people. Earliest childhood education, K through 12, higher education, lifetime learning for our workers. And we see so much of the challenge of all of that exacerbated as we experience the coronavirus crisis.
I want to ask you one last question before we turn it over to the audience and invite some students, but I do want to ask you a little bit something about the previous president and the election of 2020. You've described Donald Trump as being unprepared and unfit to have been president of the United States. Mm-hmm. How do we explain or how do we understand his election in 2016? And although he lost to President Biden in 2020 decisively, he still received over 70 million votes. What is his appeal to so many Americans?
I don't know. Don't ask me. No, I do think that there is among some, first of all, there's an element of his support that we will never get, that we will not reach out to, and you saw a lot of them on the steps of the Capitol. People engaged in domestic terrorism, and the main bucket, according to the head of the FBI, of that domestic terrorism motivation is white supremacy, anti-Semitism, and other xenophobia, etc. So let's put that group aside. Now, then there are those who are voting, and we respect the concerns that they have. I believe that in 2016, there was a decision that people made. If they believed that there was a place for them and their family in the future, they probably did not vote for him. Maybe some did, you know, tax cuts and all that, but by and large. But if people saw a place for themselves and their family in the future, they were more likely not to vote for him, as I say. And what were their fears? Their fears were automation, immigration, globalization, just diversity, just women, LGBTQ, you know, all this diversity coming in, and was that crowding them out? And that was most unfortunate, because all of those things should have been viewed more as opportunity, and it wasn't their fault that it wasn't. So along comes somebody just selling a bill of goods, not really intending to deliver on it, not really knowing exactly what to do about it except to misrepresent, and that was most unfortunate. But again, he's gone, and what we do have to do is meet the needs of the American people, and part of that is to meet their need to know what role that is there for them in the future, and not to be afraid of that. And of course, you're in a place that is the hub of education, Tufts, and so many other institutions of higher learning every place you turn, giving people opportunity and hope. But they have to connect to it. So I'm very optimistic about Joe Biden. I think he's a real unifier, a real respecter of people's concerns, to listen to everyone, of their concerns. And he's a kitchen table guy. The things that are of concern to people, how they're going to pay the bills, how they're going to pay the medical bills, how they're going to pay tuition, how are they going to pay the rent. And that's, has to be central to how we make decisions in public policy. And we can talk more about that if you wish. But I think that was fear. It was a campaign of fear that had fertile ground, and here we are. And then I just close, because I know we're going to hear from the audience. The misinformation campaigns that are out there, the algorithms. I mean, Facebook, I'll just say right out, was responsible for a lot of dangerous things that happened in our country, probably responsible for 2 million QAnon people signing up by how they use the algorithms to bring people together in a way that was based on misinformation. And I think that contributed to the numbers that the president received. But when you saw that, well, you did see the anger in these people who came to the Capitol because they were told that the election was stolen by this person they believed. And even after they had the insurrection at the Capitol, incited by the President of the United States, and people died and were hurt and all that, and then we went back to continue the counting of the vote to ascertain that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were president and vice president of the United States. The Republicans in Congress still pursued another state to question the vote. And after that was over, 149 of them did not accept the results of the election. So it's about him. It's about something that was out there that he exploited, and it's about the fear that that was based on and the fear that is instilled in some of the members of Congress. I didn't mean to be that political, but I'm just describing what happened.
Yeah, I asked the question.
We do many events, hope. We have to have campaigns that are about hope and not about fear. And that's what Joe Biden provided, and that's what was successful. And now, to your
now we're going to see reason to be
deliver
hopeful.
on it. You have to deliver.
So we have some students who are going to ask a question. We had one student who was teed up, but I don't see her. Oh, there you go. Beverly.
Hi, Beverly.
Hi, Beverly. Introduce yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, Madam Speaker. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us. My name is Beverly Debbie, and I'm a sophomore at Tufts, majoring in community health on the pre-med track and minoring in Spanish. And I'm from Greenbelt, Maryland, so right outside of DC. And my question to you is, with a new administration in place, what are some priority legislative actions you intend on committing to, especially in regards to communities such as immigrants and Black and Brown individuals who have been historically targeted and manipulated by oppressive laws?
Well, thank you, Beverly, for your question. And I really appreciate it. It gives me a broad swath. Right now, I'm in the Capitol, and I have Abraham Lincoln behind me here. And right now we are working on the American Rescue Plan. And this is the plan to address the coronavirus, to crush the virus, to put vaccines in the arm, money in the pockets, children in the classroom, workers in jobs, and to do so in a way that is respectful of the beautiful diversity of our country, because the communities of color have suffered inordinately in all of this. And we cannot pass bills that do a little bit at the same time solidify the injustice that is there. And that's part of what the fight was last year, when people would say to me, why don't you just take the bill? It has this money. Well, no, it has that money, but it is crippling in every other respect. So anyway, first bill, the rescue. The next bill will be the recovery, and that will build the infrastructure of our country and have some improvements in our healthcare system. While we're doing these bills, these two big main pillars of the Biden initiatives, at the same time, we had our list of about 10 that we wanted to bring to the floor as we're waiting for the process of reconciliation and the rest of that. Today we did, that's why I have this, today we did the Equality Act. Tomorrow we will do about the environment and climate and the rest. Tomorrow we'll do a wilderness bill that is, over 1 million acres of protected greens and 1,200 miles of wild and scenic rivers, no mining in the Grand Canyon like that. But in any event, they fall into the category of for the children, their health. So we will have health initiatives as well. Next week we will have 3 bills, but it'll be the week after. Next week we will have the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, which is very important to us. Millions of people marched in the street. I don't have to tell you, marched in the street for change. We have great respect for so many of our people in blue who do their jobs with dignity and responsibility. However, there are some that insist that we have to have. Now, I think of George Floyd almost every day, because when they tell you to wash your hands for 20 seconds on the COVID, and I think, gee, this is taking so long. And then I think of 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And it's heartbreaking. And that bill is very important to us, and it has some resistance, but we want to have it. It bans chokeholds, stop no-knock warrants, ends qualified immunity, that's a big one, combats racial profiling, mandates body and dashboard candidates, strengthen independent investigation of police departments, and all of that. And when we did the bill in the previous Congress, when we did the Judiciary Committee bill hearing for it, the family came. George's family, Phil and East, his brother came, and with other family members, and I met them before we went into the room, the hearing room, and they said, Madam Speaker, will you name the bill for our brother George? Because it would be important to his daughter that this recognition be there. And I said, well, I will only name it for George if you think that the legislation is worthy of his life and his sacrifice. And they did. And so we are determined. We'll pass it next week. We'll send it to the Senate. And we'll just have to, as Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. Just drum up the public sentiment so that we can pass the legislation. We're going to do women, it will be soon into March. We're in March, this week for Black History Month, so we're focusing on a number of issues related to juvenile justice, George Floyd, all of that. Next month, Women's History Month, pass the ERA, Violence Against Women Act, equal pay for equal work. We'll also be doing immigration, not necessarily a women's issue, an everybody issue, whether it's the Dreamers, for farm workers, for comprehensive immigration. We hope to get at least 2 of those through the Senate, but 3 over there, and hopefully all passed over a short period of time. We'll have gun violence. Lucy McBath today asked about our gun violence and background check legislation, and we will have those the week of March 8th. So anyway, we have 10 bills. They're about healthcare, they're about immigration, they're about gun violence protection. The list goes on. But central to it all is something called HR1, and HR1 is cleaner government. John Lewis wrote the first 300 pages of this bill, which is about reducing voter suppression. Reducing voter suppression. And then in addition to that, it has the Voting Rights Act in it, which we have to handle a little separately because it will require more time to have the constitutional basis. So we're doing them in tandem, and even though they started out together. It'll be reducing the role of big, dark, special interest in money. It'll be saying to people, your voice is as important as anybody's. And that should give you confidence that yes, we can save the planet because big special interest money will not control the policy. Yes, we can get gun violence prevention because big, dark gun lobby money is not controlling the process. Yes, we can have lower costs for prescription drugs. The list goes on and on. So we're very proud of the agenda that we have for the people. For the people, we will lower the cost of healthcare, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, preserving the pre-existing condition benefit that we have. For the people, we'll have bigger paychecks by building the infrastructure of America in a green way. For the people, we will have cleaner government to make all of that possible. And we're just every day just clicking away. Today's a happy day for me because we shouldn't have to worry about discrimination in our country, but sadly we do. And so in all of the bills that we do, we want to try to reduce discrimination and open up more opportunity.
You are truly the hardest working person in public life.
Well, I hope when COVID goes away, Beverly will come visit us in DC.
Fair enough. We're having a technical problem, so I'm going to ask the next question that Victoria Tran, who is a student, was going to ask, and you'll forgive me because it should have been asked by a young woman, but Victoria wanted to ask you, Madam Speaker, what is your advice to women who are starting out in their careers?
Okay. Victoria, you come see us as well. I look forward to seeing you in DC. This is my favorite question because as I said, when I went there, I knew right away this had to change in terms of the number of women in Congress, and we're still not satisfied. We want more. Victoria, I always say to young women, know your why. I said it earlier partially. Know your why. Why? Whatever it is, whether it's in education, whether it's in the private sector in terms of the business community, whether it's in the military, whether it's in any community or politics, know your why do you want to do this? Let's just say for a moment, perhaps to run eventually for Congress or to be involved. Know your why. What motivates you? For me, my why was the 1 in 5 children who lived in poverty. Know your subject, make a plan, vision and a plan, and connect with people who share your value, your why. But more generally, I always say, be ready. You never know. How on earth would I have ever known that anybody was going to ask me to run for Congress? I never even dreamed of such a thing. I mean, even thought of it. I never thought of it. I was a volunteer in politics. I was a chair of the California Democratic Party. So I loved promoting other people, but I was very shy then.
You've overcome it.
So know your power, know your why, and know this, Victoria, there's nobody like you. You are the authentic you. What's inside of you, what you care about, what you know about, what you want to do makes all the difference. Authenticity is everything, and you are the authentic you. So when you see somebody else, you think, oh, I like to be like that. Forget that. Be like you. You are the best you. You are what this country needs. And so I always say we would have more women, more young people, more minorities in politics if we lower the role of money in politics and increase the level of civility. And that's what we do with our HR1, try to do that, to have a path into the future. Let me just tell you this one story. So when I was first elected leader, this was a big deal. I mean, imagine, why? Who said she could run? Anyway, I go to the White House for my first meeting. And I didn't even think that much of it because I'd been to the White House many times as an appropriator, as an intelligence person. So I didn't even think that much about it, except that I was going to the White House for a meeting. So when I got to the meeting, go into the room, the door closes behind me, and I realized this was unlike any meeting I'd ever been to in the White House. In fact, it was unlike any meeting any woman had ever been to in the White House. I mean, women have been to cabinet meetings, and that's important, but that's power derivative of the president. It's kind of his meeting. This is, you're the president, Article 2. I'm the Congress, Article 1. So I'm not there derived from the president's power. I'm there derived from the power of the Congress of the United States sending me there. This was just, so that's why there was never been a woman in that room. So I sit down, and the President Bush was president at the time, George W. Bush. Lovely, just as lovely a person as that, just lovely. And he welcomes me in a very nice way. And while he's speaking about, it's going to be interesting to have a woman here, while he's being charming, I feel really closed in my seat. I'm just closed in my seat. I can't get over it. I can't understand what it is. And then all of a sudden I realized that sitting there at the table with me was Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Mott, Alice Paul, Sojourner Truth, you name it. They were all right there on the chair. They were right there on the chair. And I could hear them say, at last we have a seat at the table. And then they were gone. And my first thought was, we want more. We want more. So it is something that to recognize. I stand on their shoulders. Many of us stand on their shoulders, and generations from them, my parents' generations, the rest, and many stand on our shoulders. And we have a responsibility to you to show a path. And remember this is not a zero-sum game. One person's success does not diminish your possibilities. So have each other's back as you go forward. Is that Daniela with a question?
So Daniela is going to ask the last question. Daniela Sanchez.
Hi, Daniela.
Hi, Speaker Pelosi. It's an honor to be here. I'm representing the state of New Mexico, as you can see.
How about that?
I was just curious, what are your sources for strength and hope in dark political times?
Well, first let me say how proud you must be of Deb Haaland. She and Sharice Davis were the first Native American women ever to serve in the Congress. And just after one term, Deb Haaland is now the first woman, Native American woman to serve in the cabinet. We're so proud of her. And you have a wonderful woman governor, my former colleague, Congresswoman Lujan Grisham. So we have great women. Right now, a new member, Congresswoman Fernandez, and we had Sochi, to our small, New Mexico has been rich with women coming to the Congress and as governor. So
And there's been a few good men. Bill Richardson, of course, your former colleague, is a Tufts alumnus.
Oh, how about that? No, we have many good men. Senator Udall, Senator,
Back to Daniela.
Okay, Daniela, here's the thing. People ask me all the time, where's hope? Where do you find hope? Hope is where it always has been, sitting right there between faith and charity. People who have faith in the goodness and the charity and the love of others get hope. So we in our community, we believe that good things can happen, and that gives us hope. But we also have to work on it. We have to work on it. We have to recognize it. We have to support it, and we have to be a part of it ourselves. So I would say right now, because it's going to sound not too original, Joe Biden gives us hope. This person is really, he's run for, I've said to him recently, you've run for president any number of times. This is the time that you should have won. This is the time your particular your particular authenticity is what is needed. And when you go into, when you see people who are blazing a path, you have to see what courage they have, because it's just not about doing the easy thing and then just making it through the day. It's about having the courage to take risks, to be entrepreneurial in their thinking. And I think that he is. I think he knows that in our country we have great economic injustice, and that it falls into many categories: access to healthcare, access, environmental justice is a priority for us, economic justice, education justice, healthcare justice. And right now, this will sound political, but I will say that our new president and vice president and the Congress of the United States has a responsibility to deliver on the promise of it all and to do good things so people believe. You have to believe. They believe that good things can happen, and that gives them hope. And hope is the winning virtue rather than fear, which is its counterpart. So it is, I feel very optimistic One of the reasons I do is because of the young people, because they're thinking in fresh, different, new ways, and recognize the work that Ambassador Solomon has done in that regard to amplify the voices of young people. The future belongs to you. Own it, shape it, and again, support each other, give each other hope, and insist that the rest of us make the path, but recognize it's your future. These decisions are yours. So you have to know your know your vision, know your subject, have your path, connect with each other. Be ready. You never know, Daniela. Be ready. And come see us in DC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, that was just incredible. I think you've given a lot of people hope this evening with your words and the inspiration that you provide to all of us, but especially to younger Americans, and especially young women. Because of your example, you show people the value of politics and of public service. So we don't want you to leave as our guest empty-handed, and knowing that you are a card-carrying chocoholic, we have sent 8 boxes of L.A. Burdick chocolates.
8 boxes.
8 boxes. They're small boxes, but they're 8 boxes. And they contain chocolate elephants. I don't know if people can see this. So we want you to have more elephants. These are edible. We hope you'll enjoy them. We hope you'll share them with friends. And we hope you'll remember that we are the Tufts Jumbos.
The Tufts Jumbos. Well, you know, you're always promoting and amplifying the Tufts message. So tomorrow when my colleagues, we have to keep our distance in the rest, but they come by for one thing and another, what will they hear about? Tufts Jumbos.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Tufts. Thank you, President Monaco. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, to you and Susan.
Well, thank you.
Loves you.
On behalf of all of us, it was really wonderful to spend this hour with you.
My pleasure.
Enough. Wish you guys.
Jonathan. Thank you, Jonathan, as well. Thank you all.
Good night to all. Thank you.
Thank you.